Welcome back to the Roundtable, and welcome to an installment of Meet the Panelists, a sporadic segment where we have in-depth discussions with Roundtable panelists to learn about their lives, careers, and how they arrive at their various quote-unquote points of view. In this segment, we talk to Fran Berman, research professor and Stuart Rice Honorary Chair at the University of Massachusetts Amherst College of Information and Computer Sciences, and faculty associate at the Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society at Harvard University. It is an absolute delight to have Fran Berman with us in studio. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
It's really, really nice to have you here. We've been talking about this on the air, but it was so nice recently to have you in studio because you are in Amherst, you were in Cambridge, and now you're here today, and that's fantastic. So it's a delight to see you and to talk to you. What you have achieved in your life, these positions that you hold, are just incredible, and I'm curious as to what the original career goal was for you.
Oh, such an interesting thing. Okay, when I was 8 years old, I wanted to be an interpreter at the United Nations, but languages really aren't my thing. Like many professionals, there's been quite an odyssey. And I started out in college and in graduate school, and I loved mathematics, like many people. And I loved puzzles, I loved games, I loved mathematics, and became an academic, but became an academic in a computer science department because there's big parts of computer science that are very mathematical. And then went through a lot of different changes in my career. My interests changed, my professional interests changed. I was a professor for a while, and for 9 years I ran a high-performance computing center, a national center. I was a university administrator for a while. I helped co-found an international organization. And during all of those times, I went from a theoretical computer scientist to a grid computing person to a high-performance computing person to a data scientist. And so all of those were kind of the next steps in an academic career.
I don't want to dumb this down too much, but I've been reading this novel that I've talked about on the air, but it's a huge bestseller. It's called Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus.
I read that.
And a woman in science in the 60s and 70s. And what was that like? That character in that book very much had to prove themselves and basically show them up to be idiots, meaning them, the men. So I'm curious as how welcoming was that community to what you wanted to do and achieve?
It's a really interesting question, and the book is a little cartoonish. So, yeah. As I read it, I thought, okay. But it's based
There's a talking dog for those.
Yeah, it's based in fact. Being a computer scientist, over the last few decades, you were often the only woman in the room. And you just have to get good at getting beyond that. Because if you let that stop you, you're just never going to get anywhere. And as I went through my career and I had positions of more and more leadership, I always played this game with myself, and I thought, who's the supercomputer center director in this room? And I would never pick me. I'm little, I'm petite, I hug people. This
Right.
is not what you think of when you think of as a leader of a large organization. But I think it was more challenging because not only do you have to do the work involved for any gender, but you have to establish your credibility. And you have to kind of not take the bait that if you fail at something, it's because women can't do it. Men don't have to worry about this. If you fail with something, it's because Joe can't do it. It's not like all guys can't do it.
Right.
And I think for a lot of us, we sort of grew up in this professional space where you had to represent all women and all women's capability and show that women could do something, even if it was just something you could do or you couldn't do. So I think that made it a lot harder. And it was a chilly climate. all of these kind of professional environments, at least in computer science, were kind of geared towards a more conventional stereotype of men who had a person at home who could do a lot of the stuff, men who had different hours that they might be available, etc. So it was all the conventional stuff that you think about all the time, but it was a lived experience for a lot of us.
So when it comes to the work, and as you say, it took different forms, but you were so interested in the research element of it, of finding out what made things things.
Yeah, I mean, I was a kid like a lot of kids. I always wanted to know why. Why is the sky blue? Why did that happen? That's a sign of an early scientist. So I grew up just always being curious about things. I'm still curious about things. I want to know, why did something happen? And, what's the next thing we would think about? And so science became a very natural career for me. But I'm interested in a lot of other stuff. I'm interested in dancing and kayaking and literature and art and, all kinds of things. And I think it's easy to get kind of limited into, this is what we think, a woman in academia should be like. This is what we think a computer scientist should be like. And I think it's sort of important to realize that all of us are very multidimensional people.
So when I say in introducing you, when you're on the panel, research professor and Stuart Rice honorary chair at UMass Amherst, what does that mean?
My real role at UMass Amherst is they recruited me to start an all-campus public interest technology program. You might ask, what is public interest technology?
That was my next question.
In a sense, it is the development of the expertise and the skills and the perspective to ask the question, how do we make tech good for us? Because tech is everywhere. Tech is in everybody's profession these days. It's a tool. The privacy, the security, the safety, all of these things that you think about all the time, tech has some role in that. And so I was hired, in some sense, to kind of reboot higher education around bringing in those concepts for students who are going to have to live in this kind of tech-powered world, no matter what they do. They'll run a dry cleaners. They'll run for office. They'll be a police person and have to worry about webcams. They'll be in the fashion industry and they have to worry about sustainability of fabrics and databases and customers and all of that. And so I came to UMass, and this was the title they gave me, but really people at UMass know me as the Director of Public Interest Technology there. And I came to sort of start an all-campus program. It involves curriculum and research and experiences and outreach to the community. And one of the really thrilling things for me is public interest technology is kind of where public interest law was 50 years ago, or where data science was 30 years ago. And so I get an opportunity with others to really invent a field, to invent an area we really need.
Fran Berman has been our guest on this Meet the Panelists segment, and we'll be back for another go-round. Fran, thank you very much. In the meantime, you're listening to the Roundtable on WAMC.